Well, the St. Louis Blues are once again a playoff contender, and they're planning, of course, to to take some more strides in the upcoming season. So in 2025-26, to do that, they're going to be looking for some key players to take some steps, reach new heights. They'll be looking for some players to maybe have a bounce back after a down year. They'll be looking for some players to stay consistent, keep doing what they're doing, and more. So, which Blues players and personnel are the biggest X factors for the Blues' success? Who could make or break the season for the St. Louis Blues in 2025-26? Alec and I are going to break it down and give our thoughts on this episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. It's John and Alec with you as always. We go live. We try to do twice a week. Lately, it's been a little bit less often, but we're trying to get back up there as we settle into some new schedules. But yeah, we talk all things Blues, and we're providing off-season content right now. So if you want some some Blues talk and some Blues content during the long and uneventful NHL summer, then we gotcha. So we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe if you haven't already. Follow, rate, review wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple. And then follow us on socials at Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff there. And we're here today, of course, to talk about Taylor and Travis. No, I'm kidding. We're talking about X Factors. This is something that we did last summer. I don't know if you remember, Alec, but this was, I think, like episode, it was in the teens, I believe. So it was early on in Note News history, and now we're in triple digits. Who would have thought? But this is an exercise that we did last summer, and thought it would be fun to bring it back, do it again this summer as we continue to preview the upcoming season. And so what we mean by X factors, right? I think it's a kind of a buzzword. So I think to guide our conversation, we should go ahead and define it. What we mean by X factors, right, is players that we see as big variables. So they could swing one way or another. We're not like predicting these players to have big seasons, but the season for the Blues as a whole could, in some part, sort of hinge on what these players are able to accomplish. Right? If one of these players goes out and has a big year, does what we're kind of hoping they could do, it could be big for the team in the wider team context, or for some of them, if they take a step back, or if they sort of head on a downward trajectory or something like that, it could break the season for the Blues. So we'll sort of give our thoughts on that. Alec, this offseason has been long, but we are actually almost to September, which is a month when we will start seeing some hockey games again. So it's you can kind of starting to see exit signs for it on this freeway of the offseason. But yeah, how you holding up?
The countdown is long. The days grow longer. I can't remember the last time I've seen the sun or touch the ice, but I am holding it together for the good of the pod. No, I'm ready to talk some breakdown of X factors as you sort of set us up, and yeah, I think just thinking about this team, it's so much fun, and it's so enjoyable to think about how this team could set itself up for something really exciting. And on paper, there's a lot to like about this team. I think
Mm-hmm.
I am definitely in off-season hope mode, but I am going hard on the hopium because I really like how things are lining up for this Blues team, and I think this could be a really big season in St. Louis.
Yeah, and we've kind of come a long way from last off season, when this was sort of more framed as like, I think there was an even bigger air of hope. It took some real optimism to see some of the things we were talking about, and I believe last year's X Factors episode was framed in the context of the retool. That was something that we still saw ourselves as firmly in, and maybe like a year or two away from really being out of. But a lot can change in a year, and I think we're both, and a lot of Blues fans are still expecting the Blues to be relevant again this year, to be back in the playoffs. I think is a fair expectation for this team, and yeah, when we sort of look at the roster up and down, it is exciting. Um, so Alec, I added on the rundown, but I'll ask you while we're on the topic of last offseason, don't look at it yet, if you haven't yet. Um, do you have any guesses for who we had on our lists last offseason without looking?
Last off season,
I just
I
think
don't
it's
know.
an interesting way to approach the exercise, how things change.
I want to say Neighbors. Was he on the list?
Depends on how you would define one of your X factors that you listed. Um, so we each came to the table with four, I think, last year. Neighbors
Okay.
was not one, but you had as a group like the rookies, which I guess Neighbors wouldn't really count as a rookie at that point. But he was not one actually, believe it or not. Um,
Okay.
the one that
Hmm.
I remember most vividly was Justin Falk, which is kind of funny to think about.
Oh,
But that
wow.
was
Never
that
would have gone
was
there.
again that was pre Cam Fowler, and I think just recently after the Torrey Krug news, and so it kind of felt like someone's got to step up, and it felt like he was the guy. That was again pre Cam Fowler, pre Philip Broberg breakout. Um, so that was one. Some others, I picked Benner, you picked Hofer. I also picked Kairu and Drew Bannister. You picked Brandon
Oh,
Saad.
wow.
Yeah, you picked Brandon Saad, the rookies, and special teams was sort of um, how it all shook out. So again, a lot can change in a year. A couple of those people aren't with the team anymore. A couple are not so relevant anymore. I guess just one, at least in the context of this conversation. But yeah, so
That's
why don't we?
crazy.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. And I think I don't know, like in our defense, that defense question was like a big X factor. It just happened to be Cam Fowler filling that role and not Justin Falk. Like the coaching was a big X factor. It just happened to be Jim Montgomery filling that role, and not Drew Bannister. And then like special teams, I mean, you could make an argument that special teams, especially the penalty kill, really brought the Blues down last year and kept them from realizing their full potential. Maybe so. I think you were on the money there. And then some of the young guys and the rookies proved to be very important as well. So um, I don't think we were that far off. Brandon Saad, he was an X factor maybe in a bad way, and uh, we saw him exit as a result. But yeah, interesting how much things can change.
For real. That is crazy. I don't think I would have pulled half of those. A lot can change in a year.
For sure. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into this year's? And would it work for you to just sort of go back and forth and sort of have a conversation
Yeah,
about some guys that we think are particularly relevant? Um,
let's do it.
let's do it for sure. So I want to start the conversation with who actually Rob pointed out in the chat as his number one, Pavel Buchnevich. It feels like um, in a lot of ways I could see an argument for Booch being the main X factor potentially, like depending on how you view things. But the reality is he had a down year last year. His lowest season totals in quite a bit, um, and we've had this discussion a lot already. We don't really need to flesh it out entirely, but like um, you know suffered from being played out of position to start the season, suffered from some uncertainty and some disruptions in that regard. Um, but beyond that, he wasn't the two way player that we knew him to be, and um, the sort of scoring winger that we had come to expect. And so for me, it feels like he's a big one, especially if um, he's going to be a like stalwart or a like mainstay, I guess, on that top line. The
Hmm.
second line carried the team so much last year. It feels like the top line. It feels like we can't expect the second line to do that again, at least not by themselves. And so we kind of need the top line to figure something out. Um, and it feels like of Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich, and then either, depending on your take, Jimmy Snuggerud or Jake Neighbors. It feels like maybe Buchnevich has the most to figure out in terms of like he is the second most valuable player on that line. He needs to be scoring a lot of the goals from that first line, and so I'm looking for him to bounce back uh, in offense, get back up to those mid 20s numbers, get back up to the upper 60s, maybe even low 70s in terms of point total, and then get back to doing things defensively the way that we've come to expect from him because it really wasn't there last year.
Yeah, with Buchnevich, and thanks for the comment, Rob, and also thank you for being our first
First,
honorary
thank you.
member. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we greatly appreciate that. I think we'll on a future episode sort of break down what some of the new features are because I think we're still familiarizing ourselves with it as well. But in terms of Buchnevich, I think there's a lot of reason to think that he can have a bounce back year, and I've sort of made this point before, but I do genuinely believe that there is some real reason to be optimistic about Buchnevich's projections coming into the season. He's still a relatively young skater. He's just turning 30, so he's still got some good years of hockey in him. It's not like this is the time when wingers can just fall off a cliff, especially not a guy like Buchnevich who has just been this mark of consistency.
Hmm.
Um, and while the points totals have been um, there is sort of a trend, a downward trend, um, that could be like is genuine reason for being concerned. I think with the what we're seeing out of his production, even just in the goals metrics of 30, 26, and 27 goals is still pretty convincing, especially when that 26 goals came in 63 games, the lowest of his games played in his
Mm.
recent 4 years and in all 4 years in St. Louis by far. And then 20 goals scored last year when he wasn't in positions to score goals. So I'm I I personally think we can take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think looking into, well, his points are on a downward trend is not totally painting the full picture because I think understanding the amount of games that he's playing, getting those points, and his point per game pace each season, year after year, as well as some other statistics like his shooting percentage is actually like around his career norms each year.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Meaning there isn't exactly a lot of regression happening. It could just be, I don't know, a case of bad luck or being out of position. And I just mean like on the ice, having to learn a new system under Jim Montgomery. All these things piled against Boots last year. And for a consistent player who likes stability and is the role model of stability, I think a year of turmoil kind of set him back. I think Buchnevich is definitely, I think you're right in identifying he is the biggest X factor for this season. If he can be a good first line winger, this team is cooking with gas for sure. And there's no guarantee of that. That's going to be something to monitor. Um, but I think there's reason to be hopeful with Booch. In some of his best seasons, he had playmakers on his side to help him
Hmm.
set up those goal scoring opportunities. Now playing with Jimmy Snuggerud and Robert Thomas, that could be a potentially lethal combination and really set up Booch for success. Having
Yeah.
him play the full season on the wing could really set up Booch for success. And also, it was his first year. This is a totally superstitious thing, but it was his first year of a contract extension. And just in sports, it seems like after signing that big money, players can kind of have a little bit of a step backwards before returning to form. Totally a tongue-in-cheek anecdote there, but I think there's reason to put some confidence in Booch. Maybe maybe his prime as a 70+ point player, maybe that's gone. But if he can get back into the mid 60s, like you said, I'm perfectly happy with that, especially if Jimmy Snuggerud can even surpass him on the depth chart. Um, I'm super into Booch this season.
Yeah, and then just lastly on that point before we jump to your first name, he's another player who really benefited from that post Four Nations bounce that the Blues had. I mean, he not only benefited from it, he was a major factor in it. His goal pace and his point pace post Four Nations um, looks like some of his best hockey, honestly, at least in a long time. So in those 22 games, he scored 9 goals, had 14 assists for 23 points, and that is a per 82 game pace of 33 and a half goals, 52 assists, and just under 86 points. So like those are solid numbers that he was putting up for an extended period of time. Not to mention his playoff hat trick, maybe potentially working wonders for his confidence entering next season. So I think he just ended the season on a great note, and it
For
just
sure.
in like with any sport, if there's an interruption, like athletes are so habitual, especially at the professional level, and when there's a disruption to that habit and those norms, it can take a while to adjust. So playing out of position at the start of the season was a big adjustment for him, and I think like I think he handled it well. But really, once he was able to get back to where he belongs, things took off. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can go on to my first X factor.
Yeah.
Um, I am someone that I've talked about previously as someone that I'm monitoring very closely for this season. And I am kind of two minds on this player. I've said before that I think he could have kind of a not so impressive season. But the more I've thought about it, the more again, I am just so high on the hopium. But it really makes sense on paper to me is Logan Mailloux. I
Hmm.
think in terms of what he can provide to this team, if you want to talk about wild cards and just what could change the calculus of the season, if Logan Mailloux hits this season, that is a game altering, potentially franchise altering trade to get a solid middle six winger to trade that off for a solid two-way, or not two-way, I would say really um offensive right-handed shot defenseman. As good as Zach Bolduc was, you can find players like a Zach Bolduc in the first round. To get a especially a right shot defenseman right now with the potential upside that he has is not something that's just going around the NHL. And it costs a premium, but I think he could return premium dividends on that because Mayu is a guy who could really benefit under playing Jim Montgomery hockey. I've talked ad nauseum about how Montgomery loves to use his defensemen.
Hmm.
I mean, I think this could be, and I'm not comparing them player to player at all, but I think this could be his Charlie McAvoy piece of an offensive defenseman, of someone who can truly score goals like McAvoy can and make real offensive impact beyond just advanced analytics, like actually produce. Mayu is exactly that kind of player, especially playing under Jim Montgomery. He likes to stress all the little things about doing the little things right, and that's really what Mailloux needs to work on, because all of the big parts of his game, his skating, his shot, all of this is pretty refined. It's like his puck retrievals, or his puck handling over the line, or his play in transition. It's smaller tweaks to general format and structure that he has to make, which is exactly what would come playing under Jim Montgomery. Even though it's his first crack at the NHL, I really think that there's an upside for this kid to hit this season. And I know in the past I've said that it could take some time, and I still think it could take some time. Um, but I also think that there's a world, maybe 30% or so, where Mailloux is like a year one impact. I think there's the path for playing time for him, which is huge, and there's the path to be an impact. So Mailloux as an X factor, if he hits, is game changing to this Blues season.
Yeah, and again, it's X factors, right? It's not predictions. So I think Mayu is a fantastic one. Like if he hits and he hits this season, he could be a huge X factor for this team for all the reasons you mentioned. I think he's a good fit for a coach like Montgomery. He's ready to sort of make the jump to the NHL and probably won't be, like a Broberg level breakout or something like that. But like there's some real offensive upside for him to start to figure things out in St. Louis at the NHL level. And so if he does, yeah, like he could be a huge X factor for this team. Like we have been waiting for exciting young defensemen for forever here in St. Louis. And so if he can be that starting this year, then yeah, like that could do big things for the Blues season hopes and postseason hopes as well. So I think that's a great one. Um,
Yeah,
we've had a lot of Mayu discussion in in recent weeks, so I don't have a ton to add, but I really like your assessment there.
sweet.
Um,
You want to give our next X factor?
sure thing. So I'm trying to think about where I want to take this next. I thought about Thomas, but that feels a little bit boring. I'm gonna say maybe it is a little bit boring, but um, the offer sheets boys. I like, it's no secret. We love them here on Note News. Holloway and Broberg are fantastic players. So the way I'm framing this is um, they are X factors when it comes to the question of like, can they continue to take steps and improve? They both took such big steps last season um, that I think there is a question mark around, is there room for another big step, or is it going to be smaller steps from here on out, or is it going to be a step back, or is it going to be like this same level of production for a little bit? So I think those are legitimate questions around both of these guys. Watching them play for an extended period of time last year, I'm leaning more on the optimistic side. I think there's more in there. They're so young, um, but it was just like the level, the degree to which they both took big steps in their development last year. It's like, whoa, like how much better? How much better can they get from here? So I think that is a legitimate question, and I think that you know, the Blues season could hinge maybe more so on these two than a lot of other players because as we've talked about before, Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway are probably you know definitive concrete parts of this core, assuming you can sign them to an extension. Assuming that will happen, they are core pieces. They are really important and integral to the Blues' long term success. And so I think sort of baked into that expectation is an expectation of growth. And so the X factor here is how can they continue to develop, and how much can they continue to take steps. Um, Matt in the chat pointed out that he thinks Broberg was a little bit snake bitten last year, and he created a lot of opportunities. And then there's a concern with Holloway and his injury history. Those are valid concerns. and I've talked about Broberg theory on here before, but he's just I'm looking for him to take steps when it comes to like actual point production. I think he impacted play so much elsewhere. I'm looking to see can he become a guy that you can count on as an individual as well, and sort of walk that line. And then yeah, I think you're really hoping Holloway can stay healthy for more of the season, and then if they are able to make it back into the playoffs, be there for the playoffs too. So those are some of my questions and thoughts around the offer sheets, boys. But I'm just sort of lumping them together as a big X factor for the Blues this season.
Yeah, you double dipped on me.
That's right.
Um, so I'll start with who should I start with, John?
Start with Holloway.
Okay. Holloway, to be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about. I think Matt in the chat pointed out his surgery. We don't know what the recovery from that is going to look like. Now he had
Mm-hmm.
a full off season to recover. There's no reason to think that he won't recover from it, but you never know, especially with a young player who isn't necessarily done growing. You never know what that could do on his body. And the other thing was just like his season was so fantastic as a young player. I almost could see a little bit of a sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that I just worry about his potential, or I don't worry about his long term potential in the slightest. I think he's got all the talent in the world and will be a great Blue. But I think for this coming season, I could project a little bit of a step backwards for Holloway. Um, Partially, maybe even just if the Holloway Schenn Kyrou was one of the most effective lines in the NHL, can they repeat that? And
Mm-hmm.
if they can't, whose production does that come at the cost of? Kyrou's? Probably not. I think we're all kind of on the Kyrou hype train, and with very good reason to be so. Um, I think this is finally the year he hits 40. I don't know about 50, Rob. That's well, I would love that, but I think I'm gonna stick with my guns at 40 for now on Kyrou. But I love the optimism. Um, but with Holloway, I just think that there's a lot where he could take a step back, versus progression. The only reason to think so would be just because he's a young player and getting better, which is good reason. I'm not saying that there's no reason to think he can't get better. However, I think that there's still just a little bit in me, that I'm apprehensive about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I'm very excited to watch Holloway play again. I think the league could adjust to him though, is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Um, Broberg, on the other hand, I think Broberg is set up for quite a nice season. I think, if we all remember how he started his season with Falk as one of the best pairs in the NHL. I don't necessarily know that him and Falk are going to repeat that level again, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they could hit a stride again, especially coming. It feels like Falk is kind of a hot start guy who then cools off throughout his career. Maybe that's just wrong and anecdotal, but I don't know. It feels that way to me. Um, so with Falk, or with Broberg, I think he had a lot go right for him in a season where he didn't really even produce all that much. So it's almost like he had things go right for him. Or I'm saying this backwards. He played really well and still didn't have the production. I think production is coming. I think I subscribe to Broberg theory, first of all. Um, I think
I
that
should write a book.
a novella
Yeah.
fills, I don't know. Um, I think that given just how effective Broberg was in his sample size, and still wasn't able to produce at the level that we all think he's capable of, to me that just means that it's coming, and I think there's some regression in a positive way coming for Broberg that he could crack 40 points and establish himself as one of the best young defensemen in the league. I think that's absolutely in the range of outcomes for him. So yeah,
I
I'm
like
in
it.
on Broberg.
That's music to my ears. All right, who you got next?
Next, I think I want to go. Um, I think I want to go Cam Fowler.
I like this one.
Um, Fowler is I have sort of brought it up on this show already that he is a mental headache of whether or not you extend him.
Yeah.
Um, just because I mean, yeah, you can go back, check out I think it's 3 episodes ago now, the discussion we got into on that. But yeah, with Fowler, it's can he repeat? I don't think there even necessarily has to be a I don't think there even necessarily has to be a step forward for Fowler just because he was so fantastic. Um, but I think with him, if he can just continue at the same pace that he was, that would be
Mm-hmm.
a very successful season, and that would be the X Factor wild card going in favor of the Blues. The question is, can he do that for a full season? And there are reasons to think yes, and there are reasons to think not. I think the case against is that it was just so out of nowhere that maybe this was just a lucky break for a while that happened to work really well, and the boys were all running hot, and Fowler happened to be the beneficiary of a lot of that. But I think the case for is actually a lot stronger. We've talked about offensive defensemen in a Jim Montgomery system. Cam Fowler is one of the reasons why I'm hopeful for a Logan Mailloux because look how good Cam Fowler was when Monty took over. Um, Also, thinking about how he was playing, it was getting really crafty, clever assists. That ability isn't going to go away. At this point, the league isn't adapting to Cam Fowler at like 35 years old or whatever he is. Um, I think with Fowler, there's really a um, I think there's a lot of reason to be hopeful about that he can repeat and that he can be a plus partner for Colton Parayko because
Mm-hmm.
that just enables Parayko to be the best version of himself. And we all know that the best version of healthy Colton Parayko is the best thing for this team. It's just it matches up so well. It feels like he plays so well in this system, and it wasn't like the way that he was winning was fluky in any way. So yeah, I'm hopeful for Fowler.
I think this is a great one, and has a case to be up there, be like one of the top ones in this conversation. Partly because of how valuable Fowler was last year. I mean, he sort of came in and remade the blue line for the Blues and sort of really helped stabilize that. I think the combination of him and Montgomery were responsible for that, but you would have had a lot harder time doing it without the addition of Fowler. So bringing him in was huge, and he really didn't waste any time to start making an impact. Was just really consistent, and he and for that matter, he and Pareko both were. Um, but when Pareko went down in March, Fowler stayed in and was sort of the number one guy, right? And so I think I think where the Blues are at right now with their defense, given who's there and um, their ages and things like that, you are kind of really counting on Fowler and Pareko to at least do it again, or not take a huge step back. And this was on my list too, but I think I was thinking about it as more of a pairing type thing, just because I think they complement each other so well. But I think Fowler is the main one to pay attention to here. It feels like Pareko is maybe a little bit more stable, a little bit more solid, whereas Fowler is maybe fits the definition of an X factor a little bit better. But yeah, like if he takes a huge step back, things look a lot different on the blue line. You know, do you switch up the top pair? Do you push Broberg up there or Falk up there? Do you have to bring in someone externally? Do you have to, go and make a trade or something like that? So the things would be a lot simpler, a lot safer, obviously, if he can go out there and do it again. What's his age now? Is it
I think
30,
35.
35?
I
Yeah, I
forget.
mean, so I think is it 35 or 34? I thought it was 34. Let's see. Cam Fowler. He is currently 33.
Okay.
Will turn 34 in December. Okay, so that's a little bit better than 35, right? Um, so there is a question mark around him is how will he look at the end of his career? I think there are still plenty of years left for Fowler to be playing in the NHL, to be playing at a productive level. But how long can he keep doing it in the way that we saw this year? I think that's the bigger question. So how is he going to look here on the back nine of his career? Um, can he keep the magic going for at least one more season? And then yeah, like the extension question is a whole other thing. But that's important here as well. So yeah, I think this is a great pick. Um, and for what it's worth, I'm a little bit optimistic. I think I'm erring more on the side of optimism with most of these guys. But Fowler, just what you saw out of him down the stretch, just the level of consistency, I think more than anything that he showed, um, was big for me. And then obviously had that huge game, really a huge first round, really, for the Blues. So
Hmm.
yeah, I like that pick a lot. Let's see. Um, all right, I'm gonna bring in our first off-season edition here. I'm gonna say Pius Suter as a big X factor. Um, and I think the question with him is, can he be a stable and reliable middle six center? Um, and I think the answer to that question is more likely than not yes. Um, but I'm hoping for stability and reliability offensively as well as defensively. I think there aren't really many questions with what he brings on the defensive side of the puck. Um, but can he repeat at least something similar to what he did last year? I mean, last year was a career year for him. In 81 games, scored 25 goals, 21 assists, so 46 points. By far a career high in goals by 10, a career high in points by 10. So really had a fantastic season over in Vancouver. Um, for most of his career, he's been scoring 14 or 15 goals, and then anywhere from 10 to 20 assists. So I think the floor for him is 15 goals. If you're not getting at least that out of him, it's kind of I think just a bad year for him. Um, but can you get something a little bit closer to what we saw last year? I think is the bigger question. If the answer is yes, if we get somewhere in the realm of 25 goals and 50 points, that could be huge for the middle six, for that third line, or that second line. If, depending on the Braden Schenn question and if he keeps his spot up there. So Suter feels like a big one to me. He's sort of I don't know. I guess I could see a case for either him or Mailloux being the prize acquisition. I'm leaning more Suter as the main acquisition of the offseason. And so it feels like there's some expectation, there's some pressure there for sure. He seems to me like the kind of guy that can hold that role. I think he was asked to do a lot more in Vancouver last year. So I'm sort of leaning more on the expecting him to do it again side of things, with maybe a little bit more of a I guess a less pressurized role than he was playing for the Canucks. So um, I really like the fit. I really like the way Suter fits into this team, and so I think he could be a big X factor for them, positively or negatively, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, and he's right in the perfect aging curve for this Blues team as well. A 2-year
Mm.
deal, like that contract is just perfect. It's a very low risk, high reward deal for the Blues. I'm a little bit surprised they were able to get him to sign it, but
Yeah.
I think he's going to be I think he's going to fit right in and play Blues hockey. I see no issue with him playing a more physical brand of hockey. And yeah, I agree. I think that this is going to be a huge addition for the Blues going forward.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah, I guess I don't have a lot to add there. Who do you got next?
So perhaps the other side of the Pia Suter coin, you have um, the newbie brought into the fold and the old vet who will take over, especially in the second line center question, is Braden Schenn. And how big Schenn can perform this year is going to be a huge X factor for the Blues because I think a lot of people are expecting regression. He had a pretty solid season last year. Around the time of the trade deadline, you'd think he was having a career resurgence, but I would say a solid Braden Shen season.
Hmm.
Um, and I think Shen will always bring that physical edge, set the tone on the ice, be your captain. There's no questions or doubts about that in terms of how he can aid and assist this team with his physicality and his compete. However, with his production, can Shen go back to being a mid 20s goal scorer, or can Shen perhaps find a new level of um, assist getting for playing with such dynamic young wingers on his left and right in Holloway and Cairo? Or is there another level for Shen? It doesn't have to necessarily be an upgrade or a definite improvement for the old captain, but can he in some way at least maintain his level of play? And I don't think that's a guarantee at all, given his age. There's, he could this, excuse me, father time could be catching up to him, and having him on as the second line center could be a potential problem. I don't think that's going to happen. Um, I think bringing in Suter gives you some nice stability there as a backup plan for sure. So I think that the Shen Suter discussion was whether whoever ends up taking the second line center position, the Blues have done their homework and done the right thing. Um, but yeah, is Shen's level of play into how whether he can find the fountain of youth or if the wheels are starting to fall off could be really really big. So it's less of a positive X factor because I don't think there's this next level of Shenner to like reestablish himself as this, you know, dynamic playmaker. But if he could find something to fit in on this Blues team, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you framed it the right way. Is there's not a lot of the X factor isn't really with the upside; it's with the potential downside. So yeah, I think you're correct in sort of that assessment there. And then yeah, I mean just the potency of that Holloway Shinkaru line. I think that line in and of itself could have been a big X factor. Can they repeat it? Can they prevent the rest of the league from figuring them out and just continue to be like a really solid two-way line? And then um, yeah, as Jimmy pointed out in the chat, it's really his legs and keeping up with pace, especially on a line with those two, Holloway and Kyrou, like probably the two fastest players on the team, and just saw so many times them just like having a 2-on-1 breakout or breakaway, um, just kind of the two of them, and so can he keep up with those guys and their sort of their style of play? Can he continue to be that productive center that we saw last year? Um, and this one, I'm a little less sure about. I'm maybe a little less optimistic about. I don't think we're going to see him fall off a cliff, but I don't know that we're going to see that super high level of play that we saw um, this past season. So I think it is. I think it is a big question. So that's a good pick. Um, do you want to each
All right.
give one more and then wrap it up?
I think that sounds good.
Cool. I'm just gonna go with. Let me pull up some stats here real quick. Um, so I'm gonna stall a little bit, but I'm just gonna go with as a unit the penalty kill. And I mean, this is maybe a little bit
Hmm.
obvious, but maybe I'll just say also like maybe I could lump in 6-on-5 as well. Just playing with a man disadvantage. I think how the Blues play when they're a man, when they're on the penalty kill or at a man disadvantage at the end of the game, um, how they handle those situations, I think, um, will be a big X factor for this team. The power play was a little. It was fine this year, honestly. Like it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. I think you saw a
Under
little bit of
Monty, because it
under. Yeah,
started
yeah.
atrocious.
Yes, that's very true. Um, yeah, by season's end, it was serviceable. Not nothing to write home about. I think they finished. I got it here now. They finished in power play percentage 22.1, so 16th in the league, right there in the middle. So yeah, like serviceable. Um, Penalty kill on the other hand, it's loading. They were 27th in the league with a penalty kill percentage of 74.3. So they're down there with below them are the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Minnesota Wild, the New York Islanders, and the Detroit Red Wings. And then above them, surprisingly, the Vegas Golden Knights, but then above them, Calgary, Boston, Buffalo, Columbus, Seattle. So like other than the Knights and maybe arguably one or two others, but like um, that's not great company to be in, and not a great spot to be in for a playoff team that is hoping to improve as well. So um, penalty kill. I mean, this is a big one for me. So um, can they make improvements? It's going to take like I think it's more than personnel because I think defensively they're a good team. They have the goaltending, and they have the players that are defensively capable. Um, it's just a matter of approach, and we saw at times like flashes of a much better penalty kill, and we talked about it
Hmm.
on some of our game breakdowns. Right, they started the season looking really static, like they were just trying to block shots on the penalty kill, just trying to like occupy uh, space between the shooter and the net. But like at some point during the season, they started to be more about disruption, and we really liked what we were seeing out of the penalty kill. And so while it didn't reflect in the year end numbers, I think we saw flashes of something that looked better. Um, but I think season long, it's going to take some coaching improvements. It's going to take some overall structure improvements. And a player like Pius Suter can help. He's a fantastic penalty killer. Um, so I think having him there, having Robert Thomas obviously, and then you've got some solid defensive options. I mean, Pareko and Broberg, um, I think are the main two. I think maybe we see Dylan Holloway work in there. He was a great defensive player. We talked a little bit about the PK recently as well, but this is a big one for me. And then obviously we don't really need to talk about why playing with a man down is an X factor. It's a weakness for Monty. It was a weakness for this team last year, and it was heartbreakingly so. And so yeah, I mean this is I think one of the few areas of this team that you can point to and be like, this is bad, and this
Hmm.
needs to improve if you want to be a legit contender. Like there are other areas where it's like it's not great, but you can make do with what you've got right now, with goals of improving as you go. But with the PK and 6-on-5, it's like it's kind of inexcusable at this point. It needs to be better.
Yeah, I do like how you frame that though, that like there were flashes of something.
Yeah,
So it's not just like blind optimism.
yeah,
There's actually like legitimately something to cling on there. Uh, I definitely think that there's hope for this penalty kill too. I think the X factor here is if they could be like league average or like top
yeah,
half.
yeah, for sure.
Like that would go a long way into helping this team get where they want to go. Um, would be to get to that like top half mark is what I'm looking for. Um, but they definitely, Montgomery is a penalty kill guy. He was the assistant coach for the penalty kill during his first stint in St. Louis under Berube. So he has a background, and which is why I kind of thought that it was going to get better last season, and it didn't.
Yeah. Hmm.
But like you said, they really have the personnel, especially with the addition of like a PS Suter now, um, that makes this really exciting. And gives it like real reason again to believe that something can come of this. Um, and I think those flashes are what you cling on to. That there's something there. There's legitimate reason to think that they can find something that works. And the X factor here would be again to be like top half would be I think the high end
Yeah,
of outcome.
yeah, or even just
Um,
in that range of average.
mhm.
That would be that would be wonderful.
Because at least like the first power play unit should be something pretty special this season. I
Hmm.
mean, Thomas, Kyrou, Holloway, Fowler, um, whoever else you want out there, like that's a lethal first power play unit. So yeah, I think I agree with you that it needs to be better and it can get better.
Yeah, for sure. All right, bring us home, Alec.
I am gonna go. I am. Hmm. I'm gonna sort of redux. That's kind of lazy. All right, I'm just gonna make it simple, but the one that I think everybody is thinking about, it's Jimmy Snuggerud. How good is Jimmy Snuggerud really? Um, I mean, to me, I've been thinking a lot about the Calder race and how just disrespected Jimmy Snuggerud is getting. He has everything that you want and expect or in a normal year for like a Calder favorite. He's got the playing time, he's got the path to success, he's got a proven ability to do it in the NHL, and he on top of that he did it in the playoffs,
Hmm.
and he's got the prospect pedigree as one of the best players in the NCAA. Like Snuggerud should be one of the favorites for the award, but if you ask me, and this is getting a little tinfoil hatty, but if you ask me, because he plays in St. Louis, I don't think he's getting the respect he deserves. But
I think there's something to that.
I think Snuggerud really could turn this season like up to an 11 for the Blues. If he hits, if he's successful, if he's the player we think he could be, I mean, he could score 70 points. He legitimately as a rookie could put up. I don't think he will, but that's like the high end of outcomes for Snug is that he could put up a 70-point season as a rookie. That is unthinkable. That is so excellent. Um realistically he probably is some land somewhere around 50 points and that's still terrific. That is an amazing season for Snuggerud for such a young player. Um I think he has to be an X factor for just how high of an outcome he could reach. I mean, this could be like the next coming of I don't know, you name it, Tarasenko. Could he be of that level of skill?
Ovechkin.
Right, Ricky Crosby. Um, no, but I
No,
think that
I think there is serious upside. Yeah, like I agree.
in terms of comparing to what the Blues have had over years previous, I think Snuggerud gives them something that they haven't had in a long time, which is a dynamic, young, truly dangerous forward.
Yeah, for sure. I personally think he has that top line spot as well. Um, I know there are some out there who think maybe Jake Neighbors has that spot. I think there's validity to that argument as well. But I think given his track record, as you said, before coming to the NHL, given his performance once he got here, it felt like on and off the ice, it just felt like he belonged, and he was ready in so many ways.
Hmm.
And so I think the spot is his to start the season. And I think if he can get off to a good start, he might not really need to give it up all that often. And so playing alongside one of the best centers in the game could work wonders for him as well. Um, but also just like beyond just being able to bury the chances that Robert Thomas can get him, I think he does a great job at generating chances of his own. And so
Yes.
that's that sort of dynamic offensive play you're talking about, that we have already started to see in just a short stint. It felt like he was ready to go, and I think given a full off season of preparation, a full off season to prepare with the team and with the coaches as well. Um, I think I'm with you. I really like his Calder case. I like those odds. I mean, he's not a favorite, but he feels like a pretty decent bet to make. So, yeah, having that dynamic young player like that who could potentially, not saying he will, but has some outcome in there where he's just like a legit star, at some point in his career. Um, I think, yeah, could be huge. Could be huge for this team. Um, a couple other obvious ones that I think we should just mention. We don't have to get into the discussion because I think it's obvious why these are X factors. But just Robert Thomas, how good can he be? How far can he take the team? And then the goalies is another big one. Can they bounce back to like 2023 level? Um, how good can they be? And then like Monty, full year of Monty. What's it going to be? So those are some obvious ones. I think those discussions have been had by us and by others in a lot of other places. So I really liked the ways we took this conversation today. Um, anything else to add on X Factors, Alec?
I mean, we don't have to get into the discussion, but can Justin Carbonneau make the NHL team? Where does Dalibor
That's a good
Dvorsky
one.
land? The
Yeah,
young
like
talent is
there's
is
prospect
all
X
there.
Factors too. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, those are
I
those
mean,
are interesting
people love,
questions.
don't forget people love Pikarchik.
Yeah,
Like there are prospect X factors. We could do a whole episode on just that.
I think we could, and this is on our off-season list as like a prospect season preview. So I mean, we could definitely sort of bring some of those questions into an episode like that. So that would be a lot of fun. I got one more question for you, Alec. So this is not related to X Factors, but the Blues announced that pre-sale for their new jerseys will begin next Wednesday, September 3rd. Are you gonna get one?
I see. I want a new Blues jersey so bad. I really want a Thomas or a Kyrou, but I really want a Thomas where he's wearing the C because I think he's the
Hmm.
next captain.
He's
Um,
gotta be. He's gotta be.
yeah,
It's either him
and
or it's
I
Broberg. It's just
yeah, right. Those would be the natural next choices. Um, I don't know, and I really so maybe it's a Snuggerud. Maybe I gamble on
hmm,
the upside, or
hmm,
hey, I find myself defending Dvorsky a lot. I don't know. I'm definitely thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it a lot.
yeah. I've said it here before. I'll say it again. If there's a Broberg jersey, I really want to snag it. Have to see price points on these probably before making that decision. But really love the new sweaters. They have just like I don't know how it's possible, but every time I see them, I like them more and more. I think I was like
Yeah, Nathan
I
will.
think I was like 70% bought in on them when they came out, maybe even lower, like 65 or something. But now I'm like these are fantastic. Um,
Hmm. I can't wait to see him on the ice. I just know they're
it's
gonna
gonna be
look
so
so
good.
nice on the ice.
And I love their whole new aesthetic. I'm a big fan of what they've done. So, yeah. Next week we'll be waiting to see. Oh, and then Jimmy pointed out in the chat he likes the away the white jerseys better. Um,
Yes.
is that your take as well? Would you get an away?
I don't know if I'd get in a way.
You
but
just
I do
like
like
the
them better, so maybe I would get in a way.
white is
Um,
a hard one to get for yourself. It feels like there's more risk.
mhm.
There's more risk involved there.
Yeah, there you go, Rob.
Yeah, Rob said
All
they'll look
right.
great hoisting the cup. I love it. Um, well, awesome. I think we'll be back pretty soon. We've sort of been promising for a while to get Sam back on, but we're getting closer. We promise. Scheduling is not an easy thing to do, so we'll do our best to get special guest Sam back on the pod sometime soon, and do our best to get back on a live stream before too long. So thanks to everyone for tuning in and being active in the chat. We love to see it, and we love it every time that y'all are here and interacting with us. So please continue to do that. Join us next time. Best way to know that we're going live is to follow us on all our platforms. So subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. It helps us out so much. Thank you for 500 subs recently. That's a huge milestone for us. Follow, rate, review wherever you listen on Spotify and Apple. I don't know if it's just on Spotify or if it's both Spotify and Apple, but recently we passed, I think, like 10,000 total streams of our episodes on audio. So that's a cool milestone. Thanks everyone. So follow, rate, review on those platforms. That helps get the pod in front of new eyes and out to new audiences. And then follow us on socials: Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. We post a lot of other great stuff over there. But thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time, and let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.